together because they determined that there must be something they could do to strengthen the community, much like your church does. And they raised some money, and all they could afford after they looked at how much money they raised, all they could afford to do was hire me. They paid $12,000 a year plus car expenses. And I drove out in my old raggedy car. My hoopty. That's what it was. You don't know the half of it. And I spent more time jump starting that car. Had to park it on a hill, you know. And there aren't that many hills in Chicago. But we, for the next 3 years, we organized job training programs for the unemployed and after-school programs for youth, and brought city services to areas that had been neglected. And it was the best education I ever had, because it taught me that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they're given a chance. That people want to be involved in determining their fates and their destinies and what happens in their community. They want to participate, but they need to be invited into the places where decisions are being made. And I took that lesson with me when I went to law school. And so when I got out, instead of going to the fancy law firms, I went back and I organized a voter registration drive, 150,000 new voters to help Democrats get elected in 1992. And I started a civil rights practice because I understood, like Tim understood, that sometimes you got to fight for justice. Sometimes you have to fight for fairness. It doesn't come automatically. And I started teaching at the University of Chicago Law School because unlike the current occupant of the White House, I actually thought it'd be interesting to find out what the Constitution says and how this government is supposed to run. And eventually, this Senate seat opened up in the area where I lived. And I did what every wise man does when confronted with such a decision of whether to run or not. I prayed on it. Amen. And then I asked my wife. Amen. And after consulting these two higher powers, I did what every first-time candidate does, which is you talk to anybody who will listen to you. I mean, you take your literature around, you go to block parties and PTA meetings, barbershops, beauty shops. Anywhere you can find some people, you'd hand them literature. And everywhere I went, I'd always get the same two questions. A couple of you may have heard this last time I was in Richmond, but it's still a problem. Folks would say, where did you get this name, Barack Obama? Although they'd mispronounce it. They'd call me Alabama or Yo Mama. And I'd say, it's Obama. And my father was from Kenya, which is where I got the name from. Well, you got a Kenyan back here? My mother was from Kansas. I knew I'd get one cheer. But what really people would ask me about it is what this presidential campaign is going to be all about. Because they said, you know what, you seem like a nice guy. You've got a fancy law degree. You could be making a lot of money, teach at a great school. Why would you want to go into something dirty and nasty like politics? People, I know somebody, but why you, they'd say. Because people feel cynical about the political process. They feel as if politics is a business and not a mission. That power is always trumping principle, especially in Washington. They get discouraged, and that cynicism has been fed over the last 6 years with a can't do, won't even try style of government. A government that says that the economy is doing great. And so if you haven't seen a raise, if you are out of work, if you can't afford health care, if you can't afford retirement, if you can't save for your child's college education, that's all in your imagination. Stock market's never been so good. Hedge fund managers are doing great. We have a government that says that global warming is a hoax, despite the fact that every scientist around the world says that it's a problem. We've got a government that passes an education legislation called No Child Left Behind, and then leaves the money behind for No Child Left Behind. We have an administration that thinks that you can replace strategy and foresight and diplomacy with bombast and bluster, that somehow that makes us safer.